Good evening, everyone. Today we have been given a task to debate about euthanasia. So, ladies and gentlemen, should euthanasia be legalized?
A woman from USA, Diane Pitty, was refused the legal right to choose circumstances of her own death. She suffers from motor neuron disease and is experiencing the disintegration of her body. She faces a death that she believes will entail indignity and is suffering and physically cannot kill herself. The court has denied her request that her husband is allowed to help her. This decision may be consistent with legal precedent but is morally wrong. That is why the law should be changed. Why we should legalize voluntary active euthanasia in light of these arguments. We have seen the circumstances in which doctors would be allowed to end her life passively and should be allowed to do so actively. Therefore, should she not be able to invite them actively to end her life and to advise them about how this should be done? No one questioned her competence or courage, yet her own perception of her best interests and the perception of those who know her and love her have been overruled. This decision becomes all the more morally questionable when we realize that Miss Pretty can refuse life-sustaining treatment at any time, and the doctors are legally obliged to respect her choice. Some doctors would probably be only glad to help Miss Pretty to end her life, and it should be legally either by interpretation or of the existing law of new legalization of euthanasia.
You have got a point there, Shusha, but I disagree with euthanasia being legalized. Do we want doctors deciding who lives and who dies? No, we do not want that. This is a slope, a real slope where we are going to become God. We do not have that power. The Declaration of Independence says that we should have the right to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Nothing in it says we have the right to pursue death. Nothing. It is understandable to tragic that some patient in extreme duress, such as those suffering from a terminal, painful, debilitating illness, may come to decide that death is preferable to live. However, permitting physicians to engage in assisted suicide would ultimately cause more harm than good. Physician assisted suicide is fundamentally incompatible with the physician's role as healer, would be difficult or impossible to control, and would pose serious societal risk. Permitting physicians to engage in euthanasia would ultimately cause more harm than good. Euthanasia is fundamentally incompatible with the physician's role as healer, would be difficult or impossible to control, and would pose serious societal risk. Euthanasia could readily be extended to incompetent patients and other vulnerable populations. The involvement of physicians in euthanasia heightens the significance of its ethical prohibition. The physician who performs euthanasia assumes unique responsibility for the act of ending the patient's life.
I understand all your points, but here's my take on this. A lot of individuals are against legislation that would permit end of life decisions. But by making sure that a few objective safeguards requirements are satisfied before allowing a terminally ill patient to exercise his or her right to die, we can alleviate our worries about abuses and the protection of the weak. Here are the few safeguards that can be implemented into our society. The patient must be terminally ill, the patient must be an adult, the patient must be mentally competent, must be in severe pain, and two independent physicists must be satisfied that the above conditions are present. The information in the law as they exist and how they are being enforced have led to uncertainty. This uncertainty leaves the doctors, the patients, and the patient's loved one unprotected. If we do not address these issues openly and head on, we will have continued uncertainty and unregulated practice of this action with the fear of persecution.
I think euthanasia should not be legal. There are those who are, however, opposed to the use of euthanasia. They argue that it determines the value and respect for all human rights. The legalization of the use of euthanasia will put pressure on the terminally ill patients to conform in order to relieve their family and friends from the burden, both economical and emotional, of having to take care of them and worry about them as well. Taking the life of another person should not be rationalized no matter the situation. The human life has to be protected under any situation. Medicine has advanced since years of the past to help prolong the lifespan of man. The same medicine cannot be used to take the same life that it's supposed to be protecting and healing. It will be a conflict of ideas and purpose of euthanasia were to be and offered in our hospitals. The same ones that are supposed to be providing health care services to the population.
Just as we are allowed to pursue happiness and life, we should be allowed to pursue peace as well. I think that euthanasia should be legalized in order to end suffering and pain. This is because to allow a terminally ill individual to end their life is the only humane, rational, and compassionate choice. The current prohibitions require a person with great physical and/or mental suffering to continue to endure their suffering against their wishes, which cannot be right. The right to life and the right to private and family life under the European Convention on Human Rights should be interpreted broadly to include decisions about quality of life, including decisions about death, if the life is no longer one of quality. The law should be changed to let anyone with some severe medical condition, which is causing unbearable symptoms, to have an assisted suicide. Nobody would want to be unnecessarily kept alive against their own will. Moreover, legalizing euthanasia would help alleviate suffering of terminally ill patients. It would be inhumane and unfair to make them endure the unbearable pain. In case of individuals suffering from incurable diseases or in conditions where effective treatment wouldn't affect their quality of life, they should be given the liberty to choose induced death. Also, the motive of euthanasia is to aid in dying painlessly, and thus should be considered and accepted by the law. Although killing in an attempt to defend oneself is far different from mercy killing, the law does find it worth approving. Euthanasia should be a natural extension of patient's rights, allowing him or her to decide the value of life and death. Maintaining life support systems against the patient's wish is considered unethical by law as well as medical philosophy. If the patient has the right to discontinue treatment, they have the right to shorten his lifetime to escape the pain and suffering. To conclude my point, allowing patients to end their suffering is not only morally justified, but also essential to upholding the right to personal and bodily autonomy.
Euthanasia should not be legalized. Here's why. Taking the life of another person should not be rationalized no matter the situation. The human life has to be protected under any circumstance or situation. Medicine has advanced since years of past to help prolong the lifespan of man. The same way medicine cannot be used to take the same lives that it is supposed to be protecting and healing. It would be a conflict of ideas and purpose if euthanasia were to be legalized and offered in our hospitals, the same ones that are supposed to be providing healthcare services to the population. Euthanasia would also lead to a decline in the medical care offered in our hospitals. This will result badly because the research companies will no longer find it essential to research on better modes of treatments as they will have become lax in their work. They will argue that there is an alternative way to end the suffering of the patients, which is euthanasia, and as such, no research will be done to help find the cures to the diseases. Doctors, on the other hand, have a problem with euthanasia as it goes against the Hippocratic oath that they took before they were given the powers to practice medicine. The role of all medical practitioners is to protect life, and as a result, this does not allow them to take part in the killing of the patients for whatever reason.
That is all for our debate. Thank you.